Welcome to the Simple Idea Podcast. My name is Makai Green, and this is a podcast on self-help and personal development. Every week, my goal is to share my struggles and successes with the aim to improve along the way. Each episode focuses on valuable life lessons and personal learning experiences that I hope will inspire you to be the best version of yourself that you can be. With the introduction out of the way, let's get into this next episode. Welcome back, guys. Today's episode is going to be a bit of a shorter one, and that's all good. Right now, I'm kind of just experimenting with a ton of different things, and I got a few just tiny minor updates to fill you guys in on. But like I said, this is a shorter episode. It might be between like 5 and 15 minutes, and I'm just going to experiment with that format to see if it makes sense. I kind of like the idea of being able to introduce more compact, meaningful, burstful content that doesn't drag on. So we're experimenting with that. We're going to see how it goes, but this is going to be the first episode of that. I have missed the past 2 or 3 weeks of the podcast, and it's not due to me being lazy or forgetting about it, but I'm actually implementing different marketing techniques now, and one of those techniques includes me not uploading, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it makes sense to do at this point in time. Uploads will be back, and by the time you're hearing this, it'll probably be fairly consistent again. And really, I'm just slowly piecing things together and working on improving the overall quality of the show. Really just getting more exposure and improving the audio and just working with different software and whatnot. It's not anything too crazy, but it's stuff that I need to take the time and actually sit down and digest and find a way to implement it. But one more thing. This isn't an update episode. It's just a heads up as to what's going on. So just want to clarify that. But within traditional fashion, let's hop into today's topic. And by the title of the episode, it's most likely called expression. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And to me, I believe that expression is very, very broad. And this is just my definition. This isn't something that's, solid or set in stone. This is just my idea of expression when the word comes to mind. And to me, it's just something that's very, very broad, but it can mean anything, essentially. And anything that lets you express who you are, what you value, what you believe in, your opinions, everything within that realm. That's what I believe expression is. So to me, that could be whether it's making music or producing beats or, cooking or dancing, maybe even playing basketball every once in a while, like anything that allows you to get a sense of enjoyment out of it and kind of throw it back at the world or display it to the world. And that might sound really broad, but I'll try to dive into that a little further. But my point is, anything that you enjoy doing and anything that can be shared with others is a means of expression. So I think it all counts. And really, I just think it's something that gives people a chance to share a piece of who they are with the people around them. And generally that kind of forms a community. And I might try to go further into that later on in the next 2 or 3 minutes, but I'll come back to it. But really, what I'm getting at here is that expression can take place in the form of a hobby, like any type of woodworking, or maybe if it's even fishing or anything that you can think of. I genuinely think it's a means of expression, and that leads me to my next little subcategory or sub-argument here, which is I believe that we've lost track of expression, and that's a very, very general statement when I say that, but I do believe that we live in a society where we don't put a ton of value on the idea of expression. It's more so we are, at least within the U.S., so I can only speak for the U.S., but we're pretty much a country that's extremely work-oriented, and most of us work 40, 50, 60 years, and then into retirement. And by that point, we're in the latter half of our lives. So we might get a good 10 to 30 years of leisure, but it's not even when you're youthful. It's more so when you're tired, you're old, you're deformed, you're crippled. Maybe not that extreme, but you get the picture that I'm painting here. And really, being work-oriented is perfectly fine. I think work is, very, very important, and we should be working. I'm not here to downplay work. I think it's important. But I also think it's equally important to, introduce a aspect of play into our daily routines. So right now we're taught work hard, hustle, give it all you got, and then allow that work and that hustle to turn into play eventually. But for most of us, we end up working ourselves to death and we don't ever have our chance to play. And I'm just here to propose that is possible. And I do want to mention that there are creatives out there. There are people who, for their line of work, they sit there and their job is to come up with something from nothing, just pure creativity, which is cool. So that there is some form of expression out there. But for most people who are working a 9-to-5 job, or just a job that, that isn't in any field of interest for them, but it's just a job to meet a day's end, they don't get a chance to truly express who they are, what they value, because they're so absorbed with whatever work they're doing. But I'm really just here to propose the idea of people being able to look towards something. And I think we should all look towards implementing something. Like, I don't care what it is, I don't care what your interests are, I don't care who you are, I don't care where you're from, but I think us as humans, we all need to be able to implement some type of expression into our daily lives. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, I work 2 or 3 jobs, I have 2 or 3 kids, I have to worry about a mortgage, I have to worry about waking up at this time, going to sleep at this time, I have other priorities. And that's all true, and I don't doubt that. But what's also true is, and I've learned this from experience, and it might sound crazy right now, but people will make time for what they want to make time for. Even within the busiest of schedules, there's always 2 to 5 minutes to spare. And even if you don't have 2 to 5 minutes to spare, you might have 1 or 2 minutes. If you don't have 1 or 2 minutes, you have 30 seconds. But my point here is that by implementing just a tiny bit of expression, it's better to have that as opposed to nothing at all. I genuinely believe that it's healthy, and I'll speak from personal experience in just a moment. But if there's something that you enjoy doing, you should have every right to go about it, even if it's in the smallest of dosages, or even if you have limited time to complete whatever it is that you want to do, or whatever gives you joy, or a sense of purpose. I wholeheartedly believe you should attack that, because I don't think we're here on this earth just to, work to our graves. I can't sit here and wholeheartedly believe that. And going into another little subcategory of this whole overarching theme of expression, I guess. I'm gonna make the argument that it's healthy. And like I said before, just a moment ago, we really do make time for what we view as important. And to me, I'll sit here and argue with anybody that I genuinely think something like this does improve our well-being. When we wake up in the morning and we have something that we look forward to, that gives us a sense of purpose. You don't want to wake up every morning, dread your life essentially, because there's nothing that gives you a sense of fulfillment. You're there just because you're there. You just let the days pass you by, you go with the motions. And I don't think that's any way to live life. But if you find even a small gap in your day, or even just a small amount of time, to implement something that you really, really care about, that makes all the difference. Like I said, even if it's a few minutes a day, it's those few minutes, or even those few seconds, whatever time you can devote towards putting energy into something that you care about, it'll go a long way. Working ourselves to death is by no means a solution. I encourage you to play, even if it's in small amounts. Go out there and play. Go out there and express yourself. Go out there and find a way to share who you are with the rest of the world, and give yourself a sense of purpose, or just a sense of peace at the end of the day. Really, it's just about finding something that you love and just sharing it with others. And really, our society has just taught us that being creative isn't all that important. And this could be, you can argue here, within my experience, it hasn't felt like it's been a very, freely creative society. It's more so hustle, get money, work hard, no days off. That's when I think of, the U.S. That's what I think of. And you might have a differing opinion or a different thought process. But within my lived experience, that's pretty much what I've picked up on. But I don't think that's right. I do think that we need we need to every day, not every moment would be cool, but every day we need to throw out a bit of our creativity into the world. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter with who, it doesn't matter where. None of that matters as long as we are, consistently being creative and sharing ideas and thoughts and just sharing who we are. I think that is very, very important. And I'll sit here and argue that your interests matter. It doesn't matter who you are. Like I said, it doesn't matter the who, what, where, why, when. None of that matters. What does matter is that you have interests and then you have the ability to express them. And everybody's expression is valuable. Lastly, and I do want to make this like a relatively short episode, but I do want to talk about my personal experience. And as most of you can probably guess, it's about this podcast, but I just want to talk about my outlet for expression. So I'm going to paint you a picture very briefly. I recognize that for a while, and this is like the past 2.5 years or so, I've experimented with different forms of content creation and just going out there and being creative. And there were some forms that I liked and there were some forms that I didn't, but I often kind of fell off and got stuck with just kind of going through the motions of life, which for me is just work and school and then work and then school. And then when I don't have work or school or homework or, if I don't have one of those 2 or 3 things, then my next option is to play a video game. And that's what I was doing for a while. I would just sit there and play video games when I wasn't doing anything else. And it's a pastime. And for some people, that could be a means of expression. You have people who their whole identity is more so them as a gamer, or they like to stream, and that gives them happiness at the end of the day. For me, that's not how I was treating it. It was more so just to fill a gap of time that I had within my days. And it just wasn't a productive pastime. If anything, it was very unproductive. So, fast forward some bit of time, and now I have a podcast. And I started this podcast with the intention to basically upload 1 episode a week. And I'll be completely honest with you, it is something that requires a ton of work. But I'm okay with it because it's work that's rewarding. Every part of this process that I go through, it gives me a bit of joy. When I wake up, I have new ideas, I have new thoughts. And by now you already have an idea of what the podcast is about if you've been listening for a while. But really, just being able to share who I am and what I have going on and being able to relate that to other people and hopefully teach other people what I'm going through and them teach me, like that's all very exciting. Like the idea of growing myself and helping grow others is beautiful. And it came in the form of a podcast for me, which I'm forever thankful for. And that's my means of expression. Really, I was just able to create something out of nothing, and it started from just a really simple idea, which is funny because that's the name of the podcast, and it's kind of, it's correlated. But, it started with an idea or a vision that I had, and then I put it into place. And every day, and at some point in time, it doesn't matter what I am thinking about the podcast, and I'm actively going about expressing myself through it. So this is my daily dosage of expression or creativity, and I've noticed that it has made a difference in my emotional and mental well-being. And I'll sit here and make the argument that nothing, or how should I word this? Basically what I'm trying to say is, if something gives you purpose or fulfillment, it's impossible for it to be negative. It won't hurt you. If anything, it'll only boost you. It'll only help promote you. It'll only, make you feel better, be better, just overall, just increase your well-being is what I'm essentially getting at. So that's what expression gets you. And that's why I think it's important, why we should, it doesn't matter who we are, we should all, in some form, in some dosage, on a daily basis, be implementing something that we care about into our lives. That's my argument here. And really, I can sit here and truthfully say that I'm in a much happier place because I'm able to express myself. Instead of going through the motions and trying to figure out what I want to do and just genuinely being, I don't want to say depressed, but maybe just not in the right mindset, more so pessimistic. I'm no longer there, and it's all because I decided to take some time out of my day to share who I am. I took some time to express. And really, I'm extremely thankful that I found it. I'm extremely thankful that I'm, actively participating in something like this. It just gives me the opportunity to share who I am with other people and hold meaningful conversations. And, hopefully I'm able to provide some form of value, which is my end goal. Like this whole creation process, for this podcast is amazing. It's awesome. Like it's exhilarating, just putting things together, writing out scripts, coming up with ideas. It's awesome, and that's the creative part of it, and I really love that. But where I get my most, the most satisfaction is the fact that I'm able to touch people from across the world potentially, and provide value and help them grow, like alongside of me. And that's where my expression is. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I do want to close it out now, just because I want to work on this like shorter format, which we're coming up on like around 15 minutes or so. But I encourage you to include some means of expression into your daily life, even if it is in a very small dosage, even if it's only 30 seconds a day. Because I know there is not a soul alive that doesn't have at least 30 seconds to spare a day. If they say they don't, they're lying. And if you're saying that you don't either, because of this, and that, it's because you don't want to make time for it. And that's something that I had to come to terms with. I'm somebody that actually works 2 jobs at the moment. I'm working around 30 to 35 hours a week on top of being a full-time student. I could make the excuse and say I don't have time to have this podcast running, and I have other priorities with schoolwork and work and, different relationships and family. I could say that, but it'd be a cop-out. It'd be an excuse. And I just want to sit here and tell you that if you aren't able to implement even expression in just the tiniest bit of like waves, you're lying to yourself. That's really what it comes down to. And I will sit here and defend the idea of work. I don't want to take a big giant crap on work and say that work is terrible and we shouldn't work as much. I think we should. I like hustle culture. It's great. I think it's something that, helps grow a person. But I also think that creativity is just as vital as work, and it's something that we should really pay attention to. But with that said, like I said, I'm going to close out the podcast here just because I want to maintain this shorter format. New episodes every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can just, I've been kind of saying that for a while now. But in other news, we do have the website up now. Still got to work on optimizing it, but it's good enough to, look somewhat presentable. But if you head over to thesimpleideapodcast.com, and it should be in the show notes or in the description, depending on where you're listening or watching this episode at. But if you head over there, you can sign up for my newsletter. And with the newsletter, I'll basically just send out a weekly email about the newest podcast episode and what I'll be talking about that week. And it'll never be spammy. It'll never be invasive, because I personally don't like that about certain email systems and certain companies. But it's just a good way to stay in touch with me and what I have going on in regards to the podcast if you are a weekly listener. And the reason why I'm doing that is just because I don't want to have to rely on some of those podcast directories to, kind of push notifications about my content, because sometimes they don't do that. So I know that I will, which is why I'm encouraging you to sign up for the newsletter. It's pretty straightforward. Just head to thesimpleideapodcast.com and you can head to the bottom of the page and sign up for email notifications. But with that said, I'll catch you guys next week, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.